What's happening, you lot? It's StealthDeception in the scene once again, and we're back looking at Rise of the Tomb Raider. When it comes to the Tomb Raider series, I've been a fan since the original game on the PlayStation 1. But funnily enough, I didn't play any of the sequels on the PlayStation. The very next time I played a Tomb Raider game was Tomb Raider Legend on the PS2. And since then, I've played and enjoyed every single game in the lineup. The main one being the Tomb Raider reboot on the PS3. After loving the fuck out of the last Tomb Raider reboot on the PS3, I was really excited when Square Enix announced the sequel was in development, but oh wait.
Are you serious?
When I first saw this announcement, I was so pissed. Making a successful multi-platform follow-up and exclusive is quite frankly the dumbest thing that you could do, because all it does is alienate the rest of the fan base and as a result receive massive backlash. However, it was later revealed to be a timed exclusive, which is still bullshit, but at least it was coming to the PC. Anyway, enough ranting about that, let's get into the actual review itself. After loving the previous game so much, I was really curious if this title was able to live up to the previous game, so let's find out first with the story. 1 year after the previous game, Lara decides to look into her father's research when she realizes that they weren't just made up fairy tales. From the research, she feels that she might have discovered the secret to immortality. She finds out that an ancient prophet used an artifact known as the Divine Source to become immortal. She also finds out that an organization known as Trinity is searching for this Divine Source and follows Lara into the tomb, where she meets Constantine, a religious psychopath who's hell-bent on finding the source so bad that he's willing to kill or torture anyone, even his own crew. Lara does a bit more research and finds out the exact location of the lost city Katesh. She then sets out to the mountains knowing that Trinity was also looking for the Divine Source. She also goes along with Jonah, returning from the last game. Speaking of which, what happened to Sam and Reyes from the last game? They also survived from Yamatai, but they don't even make an appearance or are even mentioned at any point in this game. I mean, I didn't really give a fuck about them to begin with because I think they're forgettable characters. I mean, Sam was just there. She didn't really add anything to the story except getting captured, and Reyes was just a stuck up bitch with PMS issues. Jonah was definitely the most memorable out of the supporting cast, so I'm glad he was part of the game. Still, come on guys, you could have at least had Lara or anyone else at least mention them in a cutscene. Did they die? Did they become strippers? Anything? Whatever, let's get back to the story. Once they reach the top of the mountains, an avalanche hits Jonah and Lara, separating them in the process. Lara, all on her own, realizes that there are other people who live in this location known as the Remnant, most prevalent members being Sophia and Jacob, which she meets after getting caught trying to get her journal back. Lara and Jacob then escape and get to the Remnant's main base of operations. Lara then decides to help the Remnant when she acknowledges that Trinity are trying to destroy their base and murder anyone who gets in their way whilst looking for the source. Lara does this whilst searching for the Divine Source herself. Now, I will say the story is a massive improvement over the previous game. I mean, the story was good, don't get me wrong. The developers did a great job showcasing the origin and development of Lara Croft. You see the amount of pain she suffered forcing herself to kill in order to survive. The amount of intense moments also grabbed me. A lot of people criticized Lara's whininess at the beginning, but it didn't really bug me too much because the game started her off as a regular explorer. She was not used to that sort of lifestyle, but as the game progressed, she became a much stronger character. My biggest problem with that game was the sheer amount of forgettable characters. No one besides Lara and Jonah really stood out to me. Here on the other hand, that's not the case. The characters are far more compelling. When Constantine appears, I always get a bit tense. He has a very menacing vibe to him, which is what's needed in an antagonist. The rest of the cast also do a fine job in the immersion department. I actually have a reason to care about these characters, and it makes me invested in the story because there's actual character development here. Overall, I love the story. I'm not saying it's the best story I've ever seen. No, it's not The Last of Us by any means, but it's still a great story nonetheless, much better than the first game. Let's talk about some gameplay, shall we? Everything that was in the previous game returns here. Once again, you're in control of Lara Croft at all times, and obviously because this is a Tomb Raider game, there's a lot of climbing involved, solving puzzles and combat. The controls for platforming, combat and exploring are just as smooth and natural as the last game. Lara will always cling onto edges when in range. The dynamic cover system is still present, allowing Lara to peek in the appropriate direction to fire back at enemies when behind cover, and shift seamlessly when taking cover somewhere else. The survivor instincts mechanic is back once again, highlighting key points for progression and collectible items. And if you're a completionist, you're probably going to use this, and unless somehow you have eagle vision, you won't be able to see some of them. All the weapons from the last game are here once again. The bow and arrow is once again her signature weapon and still one of the best additions to the series and one of my favourite weapons in Lara's arsenal. The satisfaction is unreal every time I get a headshot. I fucking love the bow and arrow. The shotgun is the other weapon I like to use whenever I can. It's so suitable for killing everyone in your park. If you want to go full on rage mode, this is the weapon you use, and I love it. You can make upgrades to your weapons by looting enemies or salvage crates found all over the place. Not just the weapons themselves, but also ammunition for your arrows and bullets. There's also different skill sets you can unlock from collecting experience. There's a ton of different features added to this game, such as being able to craft different types of arrows, which all have different effects from scavenging materials from plants. And the best part about this is, as long as you have enough materials required for that specific type of arrow, you can craft them on the fly. No need to go anywhere to do this, which leads to no backtracking. Hunting animals also has a bigger purpose in this game. Instead of just experience, you can craft different equipment that increases your ammunition. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Because of this new crafting system, you can also create improvised explosives like smoke grenades or petrol bombs from bottles and cans scattered across the environment. Not only that, but you can also create other kinds of body traps or proximity mines. The stealth mechanics have also received a massive improvement, as you are able to hide from enemies in bushes and on tree branches and silently kill them. Distracting enemies is also possible, allowing you to kill them from behind or from a distance. This makes Lara so much more versatile. Be warned though, the enemy AI aren't stupid. That, for example, if you kill a lot of enemies from bushes, later on down the road, other enemies will check bushes if they see a dead body. So this makes it much more difficult for the player. So if you're in an area where there's a bunch of enemies, you better come up with a strategy, because they will wipe the floor with you if they see you. But I like this makes it a challenge, and when I'm completely outnumbered, it means I have to plan my every move with careful precision, otherwise shit gets real. Now there are tombs to explore and puzzles to solve, and it's a big selling point for this game. These are very challenging and will take time to solve, and you are given a nice reward that can really help you throughout the course of the game. But for some reason these tombs are still optional, and for a Tomb Raider game I don't really understand why this is. I'm not saying they should be plastered throughout your playthrough, because that would get boring. I would have liked a few where it's part of the main plot, because there are times I completely forgot there were tombs to explore simply because I was focusing on the main missions. Oh well, it's not really that big of a deal. It's just because I grew with the series, so it's just a nostalgia feel, you know, for puzzles and stuff. But at least I still have the option to play it anyway. Now when it comes to the graphical presentation, oh my days, it looks amazing. The environments are breathtaking and the character models are just fucking insane. I can't help but gush over the amount of realism here. One thing I did know is, the hair physics are some of the best hair physics I've seen, but why does it only apply to Lara? Every time I look at someone else with long hair, like Sophia for example, I notice that their hair isn't as free flowing as Lara's. Why is this? I'm pretty sure the developers could have coded the same physics to the other characters. Now I guess the last thing to talk about is the expedition mode, which replaced the online multiplayer from the last game, which to be frank I'm glad the developers removed, because it really wasn't needed. Instead, the expedition mode is basically a time attack mode, which is pretty self-explanatory. Also, when you progress through the game, you are able to replay those segments with added benefits. There are these special cards that grant you special attributes like temporary invincibility after killing a certain amount of enemies, which is exclusive to this mode. I don't really bother with these cards though, because I think this makes it too easy, and I find things like big-headed enemies just plain retarded. This also confuses me. These cards are meant to be the over 300 microtransactions implemented into the game, but every card I have so far I've obtained through playing the main story. I didn't pay a single penny for these cards, which makes me think, what was the point of including them in the first place, especially when they weren't even mentioned at any part of the game. In fact, I completely forgot they existed until this review, which makes it even more redundant. And that's how I feel about microtransactions in general. They just don't need to be there. But anyway, if you couldn't tell by now, I am in love with this game. Crystal Dynamics did mostly everything right with this title. They managed to take what worked in the previous game and expand on it, whilst eliminating the issues. I found it very difficult to put my controller down because of how much fun I was having. It was just a pleasant experience overall. This is miles better than the previous game, and I loved that game to death. So the fact that this managed to top it just shows how much harder the developers worked on it. Better story, memorable characters, and improved gameplay mechanics, and you have yourselves a true winner, my friends, and it's easily my favourite Tomb Raider game in the series. But still, I cannot get over the initial release schedule. I'm not joking, my biggest problem is the fact that it wasn't released on all platforms at launch, and if you own a PS4 at the time of this review, you still have to wait potentially up to 6 months to even get your hands on it, which is fucking bullshit. And to further show how this decision bit them in the arse, when it was released on PC in late January this year, on the first weeks the sales almost tripled the amount of copies sold on the Xbox One in the first week. So just imagine the amount of copies sold overall if it was released on all platforms to begin with, like the previous game. It wouldn't have been as overshadowed as it is right now, especially considering the PS4 is the most popular console of this generation. Whoever made that decision should be ashamed of themselves. So to the PS4 owners and anyone else who's interested, I wholeheartedly recommend you pick this game up. This was a fantastic experience. I know I went on a bit about the exclusive thing, but I loved the previous game so much, and hearing that the next game was going to be released on a console that I wasn't even planning on getting in the first place was just aggravating. I hope Crystal Dynamics learned from this mistake and releases the next game whenever that may be on all platforms. None of this exclusive shit. Right, that's me done for this review. The next game I'll be looking at is Mirror's Edge Catalyst, because I've been looking forward for that game for ages. So with that said, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, this is Stealth signing out.